Yes, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lexia Right's first ever virtual fireside chat session with Mr. Kushal Singh. Yes, our topic for the day is Guide for Law Aspirants to Deep Dive into Freelance Opportunities. Before moving on to the session, let me give you an idea on what Lex Erudites is all about. So, Lex Erudites is an e-journal which intends to publish articles and blogs on different social, legal aspects of law and national and international developments in the field of law. We have a wide range of blogs, and yes, our journals are up for issue. And you can always send in your entries to info@lexerudites.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. So yes, this is gonna be an interactive session, not like usual webinars where you'll be sitting and listening. You have a option, grab the mic. So when we come to the end of this fireside chat, we'll have a question and answer session. So you can ask your questions directly with the speaker, and he'll help you out. And it's with great pleasure I would like to welcome the speaker for the day, Mr. Kushal Singh, who's a content creator, an educator, an entrepreneur turned lawyer, who's right now is not practicing, and he has a wide experience since he was into many freelance opportunities during his law school days. So yes, without further delay, I would like to start the session. Let's kick off the session, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Shivdat, and thank you to the whole team of Lex Erudites for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity and the energy that you guys put behind everything that you do. It's very refreshing and that's such a great point note for me to start my talk today on, because it's very great when you see young people, or not that I'm trying to say that I'm very old, but it's very great to see when you see young people just trying to make use of their time and come up with any kind of opportunity that they can. And this is now no more just a little opportunity that was started. It is now a growing magazine which has set its foot in multiple countries. And first of all, congratulations on that. And like Shazad said, without wasting much time, let's get into today's session. So, well, I wouldn't really call this session a session, or where I could really, it's not one of those seminar or talks where I'm going to tell you that this is what you have to do, this is what you don't have to do. Freelancing is a lot more about perspective. It's about approach. And freelancing is more about wanting to do something. That's where my journey with freelancing and understanding the power that it has, began. And it was essentially these freelancing gigs that ended up helping me build the businesses that I have today. Now, more than freelancing as a job or anything, it's a perspective, it's a mindset that I developed, which, again, the habits that you develop during freelancing or when you're trying to look for opportunities, and the habits you build during that time become very, very useful in your later on entrepreneurial journeys. And if you choose not to do that, and if you choose to just remain as a freelancer otherwise also, it's a very, very, it's your work, your profit. Everything that you do as a freelancer is always yours. Now, the question that you have to ask, especially as students, many of you might be looking at freelancing opportunities. So let's start from there. Are two things. There are two questions that you always have to ask whenever you take a freelancing opportunity. First of all, why is very important in whatever you do. It doesn't matter whether you are studying, whether you are learning. It doesn't matter what you are doing in life. That why question is always very pertinent. Why am I doing a certain thing? So that is how your freelancing question also has to start. You have to start with, why am I doing this freelancing gig? Is it to earn money? Is it because majorly my journey with freelancing started with having the need to have some more pocket money while I was in college. I looked at myself. I saw there are two things that I can do. I can either learn, which I already was doing through my internships, but I also wanted to earn some money on the side. So that's where my need was. So whenever you get into a freelancing opportunity, whatever it may be, always assess what you're going to get in return. Are you getting money? Great. If you're not getting money, is it a very small time commitment, and are you building a network? Great. Are you, if you're not getting paid for that work, if you're not getting money, if you're not building a network, is that thing teaching you something? If any one of these ticks off, either you're learning something there or you're building a network. See, there with freelancing, a lot of times you will do a lot of inconsequential, very, very 500 rupees worth of work, 200 rupees worth of work. But is that money coming? So I could work the whole day and earn 1000 rupees, or I could write an article in 10 minutes and earn 200 rupees. What's better? I spend only 10 minutes to earn those 200 rupees, so that 200 rupees has a lot of value for me because the amount of time I spent to earn those 200 rupees was very less. And it was time I would have otherwise spent on like scrolling on Instagram. So that money has a lot of value there. Now, if you're not getting money, are you building a network? Are you going to step up yourself to be able to make money later on? These are the certain questions that you have to be asking before you get into any freelancing opportunity. So that's the approach and what you get or what is the value that you generate while you're freelancing. Now comes the question of how do I find freelance opportunities? How do I, how do I know are there freelancing opportunities? One, internet is your biggest tool. There are n number of pages today that give you a lot of freelancing opportunities, lot of internship opportunities, and above all of that, the most important skill that you have to have as a freelancer is thick skin, and it's called cold calling. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard about what cold calling is. Does anybody here know what cold calling is? If anybody does, let me know in the chat what you understand by cold calling. So, cold calling is basically when you are. Anybody wants to add anything to that? Please let me know. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask those while I am speaking. So, cold calling is nothing. Okay, I'll tell you a story of why I think cold calling works. So anytime I want to get something done, it can be I want to shift the things in my house. I want someone to come clean my house. I want to I want to buy a shirt, or I want to buy something for which I need quotations, or I want to do something, anything at all. I just make a list of it, and I make a list of uh, 50, 40, 30, depending on the requirement that I have. If it's a readily available thing, and if it's something I can find very easily, then maybe a list of 10. If it's a thing that's rare, then I will go through the internet and find every little lead there is on the internet, write down those 100 names, and call those 100 names. Because I believe in probability. Probability can be as low as 1 out of 100, but that is still a, in my mind, that's still a probability. Maybe I have to go through all those 100 phone numbers and be like, hey, do you have any opportunities at your place? Are you looking for someone to work on something? No. Cut the call. That's 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds at the max. Cut the call the next number. Cut the call the next number. At some point in that number, you will either realize that you are looking at the wrong place, or you will know how to go forward with it, or you will come back with some lead. So cold calling becomes very, very important skill in anything that you do. That's a skill I always rely on. Whenever I need to get something done, create a list. Now, how it worked for me was a year ago when I decided to quit my practice and completely go freelance and start a career out of it, and really do things. Not that law wasn't, not to give you the impression that law isn't a great. It's a very rewarding career. It's a very satisfying career. I at some point started feeling that maybe I wasn't cut out for it, or there were certain things that I wanted to do which didn't align with what I was doing. And even if I wanted to do law, I didn't want to practice it out of necessarily out of an office or litigating. I just wanted to come up with creative solutions for things. So I decided to put myself in an uncomfortable spot, because that's where all of us grow most. So I cut off all my ties. I cut off all the resources that I had, and I went back to the city where I finished my law college. I went back to Mumbai, and all I had was a list of 50 companies that I wanted to work with, and I kept calling all of them. So now basically there were two skills at that point I was trying to sell. One was my skill of writing and creativity, so I wanted to get in as a copywriter somewhere. Or at that point, I was also teaching. So I could also, and teaching is something that I've always enjoyed a lot. Now, in a city like Mumbai, to find teaching jobs, one might think that it's easy, but it's not. Because not as many institutes as per person basis, also not as many institutes as you find them in Kerala or down south. Very few institutes, especially the one teaching CLAT and MHCT, even lesser. your big career launcher and all those big names wouldn't take them. They had their very cumbersome process. Nobody would pick up. HR wasn't replying. So again, I did the same thing that I always did. I went back with a list of 40, 50 institutes. I scoured the internet and found every little institute that was there in Mumbai. When I say every little, I mean every little institute that was there from Mumbai this end to that end. I visited 10, 15 of them. Out of that, 4 or 5 weren't even existing. They were just blank websites. But I went, walked up to those places, saw, okay, this doesn't exist. And by in about 20 days, I was teaching at 3 institutes. Not one, I was teaching at 3 different institutes at 3 different times at 3 different pay scales. So that is why I know that it works. All you have to do is call and ask, hey, this is all I did. Hey, I'm a faculty. I've been teaching for past 5 years for law. Do you have a opening? Yes or no, they would match. Some of them like, yes, come at this time, come at that time. Some of them would be, we are interested, we're not interested, all of that. But at the end of it all, it doesn't matter I went through 40 or 50 names. It doesn't matter that, at the end, I got what I wanted. And that's because probability, nothing else. There was 3% chance this would work out. And I called about 40, 50 institutes. And then out of those 1 or 2 or 3 institutes replied, they were interested, and I got those things. Now, what happened through the cold calling was after I started teaching at these places, a few months after that, they might have had all of a sudden a need. And because people are not used to others cold calling them for teaching jobs, I got 4 more other offers from other institutes. And because at that point I was already teaching, I was able to take those jobs up by quoting a higher price. Saying that, hey, I'm already busy. Now I don't have the time. At that point, they were really in need of the teacher. I knew that they were in need of teacher. I played hard to get, but always left that channel of communication open for them. Saying that, hey, I am interested in this, but I cannot do it at this money. Here, the lesson to be learned is that had I called the first 5, 10 institutes and be like, hey, nobody wants a teacher, it wouldn't have worked. Because I didn't get to those 4 or 5. So cold calling will be your best friend. Cold calling and researching. There is just so many works that you can find just by sitting on the internet. Even if it's something as simple as and when I say freelancing, a lot of people think, hey, isn't that, the general viewpoint of freelancing is that it's unpaid work, or it's an unorganized industry, or the workflow is not much. Absolutely not. The workflow is great. You just have to know how to manage it. There are people, if you go today on LinkedIn, who are earning a 6-figure per month by just being slightly. The problem with freelancing is if you're a disorganized person. If you're a disorganized person, then don't take up freelancing as a full-time thing, because it involves a lot of self-discipline. You going and you're constantly searching for clients. You're constantly looking for clients. And that's where cold calling comes in. So that's my first and foremost tip. Shiv, that I think you have a question here. Please tell me.
Yes, sir. From my perspective, like during this lockdown, I must say, or during the pandemic, even though the world is physically closed, it's virtually open, right?
Right.
So since you have mentioned there are freelancing opportunities virtually, I think many law firms are in form of internships or say, freelancing opportunities. So what's your take on that? Did this particular pandemic, even though it is an unfortunate situation, does it prove to be an advantage when we consider?
Absolutely. It's, for the first time in so many years, all of us have been forced to sit alone with our thoughts. We have broken the structure. We have broken companies which used to believe that you need to sit in office 9 to 5 are doing 30% higher earnings just by going on lockdown. Just because their employees are at home, there is no more expenses. So if anybody tells you that, like we said, it is an unfortunate series of events, but again, a series of events that has brought a very, very new perspective into the society and into the world as a whole, which we could really, really use. And as far as talking about virtual internships, I will answer to you this again with the same thing that I said in the beginning. That it's the question that you need to ask whenever you're doing something. Is it adding some sort of value into my life? And is that the value that I really need right now? Because when I'm hungry and I'm broke and I can't afford two times a meal, experience is not going to do anything for me. It's not going to fill my stomach. But when I'm when I am, when I'm comfortable, or when I'm, at home, and like for right now, there'll be a lot of students who are sitting at home. They don't have to worry about anything. No need of pocket money because you don't have to go out. College also not happening. You're sitting at home, well fed, no issues at all. Take an opportunity that pushes you in terms of networking and work at that point. But if you're looking at money at some other point, then you have to look at that. So don't ever, like, especially in today's world, we shouldn't be judging any opportunity on the basis of, is it fitting onto the world's perspective of what this is, or hey, how can you do an internship sitting at a home, not going to office? A person wrote Ramayana by sitting under a tree. You can learn things sitting in office through a, through a computer also. Doesn't matter. That modality of it doesn't matter. What matters is, what are you looking to achieve out of it? And if it's fulfilling your purpose, and if it's getting you excited about the kind of work that you do, then go for it. And yes, to answer it in simple terms, yes, pandemic has changed a lot of things. Yes, you should go for online opportunities. Uh, because it's not a lot of time commitment. It's an internship at the end of the day. And if it works out, that's even better. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. Now, yeah, you can continue.
Yeah.
If any of the participants have
If you
questions,
have any questions, please feel free to ask.
yeah, we have a grab the mic option. Kindly, when you click on that, we'll approve your request and you'll be on the screen. You can ask it directly to me. This is not a webinar. Let me remind you once again. This is not a webinar.
Yeah, this is a chat where we just want to, I just wanted to, basically, we wanted to talk about how freelancing, now let's come to, until somebody comes up with a question, how freelancing can become into a full-blown career. Now that's, one is the college thing, so always scouring for as many opportunities as possible, extremely important. Knowing, but even before that, now you have to also know that what is it that you want to freelance in. Because essentially freelancing, now I'll tell you how it worked for me. I could write slide bit well, so I was always, from the time I was in 12th, I was always freelancing with friends. Now I will consider that as freelancing. At that point, all we were doing was having fun and just working around and making music and writing songs. But I figured at some point that that had a lot of value for people. There were people who wanted others to write songs for them. So I started freelancing on that, and I just went to my friends and I said, "Hey, this is how I got my first freelance." Yes, somebody wants a mic, let's take the question, and then we will continue.
This is Jessica from Government Law College, Thrissur. So my question is that, we know definitely whenever we go into writing or do something of that sort, always there's more chance of our language improving and things like that, definitely. But what is that one method or that one key thing that you follow to improve your vocabulary or your language or anything like that?
Anything like that. Okay. So I believe there's something called accelerated learning, right? Which is basically you put yourself in a position where you're forced to learn. So there are twofold answer. I'll come to your answer very specifically after this.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
uh, Pick up now. What's a topic you want to write about? Probably you want to write about maybe legal field or whatever XYZ topic you want to write about something. Find out some, if there is some work somewhere. Take up that work, take the payment, and get the deadline. The amount of learning you'll do one day before your deadline comes up is immense. The ability of us to work in that kind of pressure environment is very, very high. Now, the other aspect to it is something I can tell you, and I will tell you the answer for, but I can also give it to you in writing that your laziness will overtake you even before your want to work does. That's how it is with all of us human beings. I am sure you must have tried. The reason you're asking me this question because there have been 10 times back in the past where you've tried to improve your language. You made those efforts, but it's failed, or it's not given you the results that you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's why you are probably asking me this question. That's why you are here. So, one, just don't look at it as learning. First of all, stop looking at it as learning. Stop looking at it as something that you have to do. Like, this is something I have to sit down and do.
something that gives you joy. That's the way you have to look at it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Just do that. Start reading. Like, what other better way to read, or what other way to get better at reading, or be improving a language than actually using the language? Read what you want. You will always hear this, that you have to read newspaper and editorials to get better. That's absolute nonsense. There is more nonsensical words haven't been spoken in the history of the world. You can learn English by looking at a simple ad copy like utterly butterly delicious Amul, right?
Yeah, yeah,
To a simple, cred. Not everybody gets it, right? You've been seeing their ads, or when you're scrolling through Instagram and there is someone who is assume there's some Jay Shetty, or there are so many content creators. All you have to do is pay attention. That's a problem, right? When we are trying to learn, we are still so enamored with the idea of, oh, I need to improve, oh, I need to get better at this, oh, this needs to happen, oh, that needs to. That learning doesn't happen there, right? So learning is a very conscious thing. Learning cannot be passive. It's not something. Habit is passive. Reading speed you can improve by just reading. Understanding ability you can improve by just reading. But learning has to happen with your body, soul, mind, everything there. In that, even if it's that fraction of second, right? That's how you approach your learning, like that. So now, if you want to really improve writing, read authors that you love. Read authors that give you joy. Finish reading, enjoy it, and after that, reflect on what was that this person did that made this book like this. What was the edits that person did? And is there any specific question you have regarding improving your writing and language apart from this? I think I've answered your question on those terms. That is how you approach it. Do things that you will thoroughly enjoy, and your language improve a lot. And think about improving it. Like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Where am I going wrong? Today I read this much. Today I understand it. A lot of thought process into what you have already done and into what you're going to do. And that kind of accelerated learning or that kind of focused learning helps you a lot, because in 5 minutes also you learn a lot. So now let me ask you a follow-up question on this.
sure.
Why are you like? What is blocking you from learning that language, or improving better, or becoming better, or are you not able to gauge your improvement? What is the issue there?
No, like every time I write an article, I do find that something is changing every time. But then I think like the what do you call, the speed with which it's improving is like pretty slow, which I actually want to pick some momentum so that I can do more.
So what I like doing, is when I started writing ads, when I was writing for ads, I couldn't figure it out. It was very difficult because I just couldn't understand what this whole thing is about. So what I started doing was I started watching all these shows, Two and a Half Men. I watched one or two other shows which are very specifically about ad world, which got my context into it. And then I scoured the internet, and I read this. Out of all the thousands of suggestions that I received, that I went through, what was the most powerful one? Somebody had written on the internet. It was some Quora thread somewhere in the 6th, 7th page. That person said, rewrite famous ads. That's it. So now if I want to learn how to write an ad, I will take utterly butterly delicious Amul and see how can I write it better. Now when I try to write it better, I figured out the ads that I could improve, there was still scope for improvement. But great ads. Like, for example, I'll tell you what great ads are. It's finger licking good. Para-pa-pa-pa, I'm loving it. What will you improve in that? What's there to improve in that? There's nothing to improve that. It's great ad writing. I just started looking at hoardings when I was, when I was sitting, when I was going, when I was scrolling on Instagram. How would I have written this?
Your perspective.
Yeah, the same thing. I took that and I tried rewriting it. Or I took, like now in your case, take an article of a journalist, of someone you really like. Take that topic, rewrite that topic in your style. And always with creativity, always remember this. There's a saying, right, whenever in the creative world, or especially in the writing world, that write when drunk, edit when sober. That does not mean that you need to get drunk to write. What it means is when you're high on an idea, don't edit yourself. Let the idea flow. Let there be mistakes. There is a reason there is someone called an editor in every publication, because
Yeah.
his job is to find out what is not required. So you literally have to be those two people. When you're writing, don't worry about editing. After you have done it, once you've gotten the idea out all on a page, then come back to edit it. Okay, this looks too much. And take reference. Take an article that you, okay, he's constructed this sentence like this. Let me try to construct my sentence like this.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one of the best. You're combining two things. Watching something you love is a great way to learn it, and doing something you love is a great way to do it. So watch and learn. Copy is great. Like whenever you copy things, when you try to copy, as long as you don't send it out to a client and it's not there on a board where you know that you have copied, for practice purpose, copying is the best thing that you can do. Take what are the rules that they followed. Did you like something about it? Bookmark it and keep things like that. Simple things. Instead of looking at something that you have to spend a lot of time on, just think of it as something you have to spend a lot of attention on.
Okay.
That's all. Pay attention. Like from today, start paying attention to every little write-up that you. Yeah, any write-up that you see, pay attention to it. Why was it written like that? Why does Coca-Cola have red color and white color?
Yeah.
Why does it have? It's because red has a very high frequency, catches your attention. If I give you 5 logos here and Coca-Cola's logo was there, your eyes will go to it first. Why? Because red color, higher frequency, your eyes see it. Got to know it much later because I decided to ask questions. So yeah, that's how that's how I do it. I just enjoy whatever, and of course, it will get mundane. No matter how much you enjoy an activity, at the end of the day, it will get mundane. So try to keep it interesting for yourself because that's when you learn.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
And sir, just one more question, since Jessica mentioned about content writing, right? And you are also a content creator, slightly on another perspective. So, how can being a freelancer and a content writer? So, how can you ace it?
Always know that you can't ace it at all. There's nothing you can really like. Okay, so this is a conversation I have been having with my friend. Like for 2-3 days, this is a conversation that I have been having. That even after having worked so much, I still feel doubtful about what I do. And there are multiple days on which I'm like, am I as good at? The honest truth is, I don't know. Like I could be good, I could be bad at it. I really don't. What I have done in the past few years is detached myself from any kind of outcome. So it doesn't matter to me whether I ace it or not. Now that's a very personal take. Not everybody has to go this way. This is how I. It doesn't matter to me whether I ace something or not, as long as I'm able to bring a new perspective. As long as I'm able to entertain myself while doing it, and maybe one or two other people also while doing it. And I'm always aware of the fact that there are 90% chances that I'm going to fail, and I'm fine with that. Once you get rid, that's the whole idea that I'm trying to take. Don't keep your focus on, on. It's like this. I'll tell you how this works. So imagine you're trying to climb a mountain. Very steep. You're trying to climb Mount Everest. If you keep looking at the top, will you be able to climb? No, because to climb that mountain, you have to right now be looking at what's in front of you. But if you look there, you'll be like, oh my god, this is so. How am I going to? You'll give up half the way. So don't worry about acing anything that you do. Are you enjoying it? You will get good at it. Now, as far as acing it, let me tell you that Albert Einstein, till the end of his life, was always doubtful of his work. If Albert Einstein can be doubtful and can have doubts, am I good at this? He's Albert Einstein. He's the smartest man to have walked the earth. He used to be very doubtful of it. Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Am I working enough? Am I not working enough? So, very honestly, acing something or not acing it shouldn't be a problem as long as you are going behind it, as long as you're doing it with the same energy. Because these are just parameters that the world has kept on us, right? That, oh, if you're doing something, you have to be good at it. Absolutely not. You can be horrible at something, and that's fine because then you realize that you're not good at that thing, and you're okay with giving up that particular thing. So my very individual perception on that will be that don't worry about acing anything. Because there's always scope for improvement. You're always improving. Acing it in terms of are you doing? For me, acing it would be: are you doing what you like doing? Are you enjoying while doing it? Are you able to earn a little bit money or experience while doing it. That's it. You've aced it. For me, if you're doing that, you've aced it. There is no other, what do you say, parameter for acing it.
The reason is that like being handling right support portal, we had many queries like, is my article good, or if not, how can I ace it? So I suppose this would be helpful for them. Unfortunately, they are not.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is no such thing as acing it. Uh, that's a wrong concept. That's a concept that actually tells us that, oh, if you're doing something, you have to do it like in an excellent manner. No, you don't have to. Now, for that person, now this is acing it is a very personal concept, right? If you were someone who 2 months ago wasn't even able to write an article, and today you have submitted an article to Lex Erudice, you, my friend, have aced it. Because 2 months ago you couldn't write an article and now you're writing an article. That's acing it.
The moment they accept it, yes.
The moment they have done something that's upping them from where they were yesterday, you've aced it. That's all there is to acing anything in life. I think there was one more question that came.
Jessica has a question: how
Yes.
good, or rather, how difficult it is to take a freelance career along with the life at law school? That's a very good question.
Okay, so now depends on what kind of life do you have at law school. Are you super busy at law school?
No, coming from her law school, let me tell you, we are not that busy.
Yes. Okay. So then it shouldn't be a problem at all. Jessica, I think you should grab the mic and it'll be better if we have the face-to-face conversation on this instead of just commenting.
I think she has an issue.
Yeah.
Probably she'll be joining right now. And on a quick note to our attendees, yes, Jessica is here.
Okay, so Jessica, tell me this: what do you want to freelance in? First of all, what's the area that you would like to freelance in?
Well, definitely, my focus will definitely be on the legal aspect, and yeah, definitely that would be the thing that which I'll
What
always
in
be
legal,
doing.
what in legal aspect?
Well, I'm not very sure about that because being a first, second year kind of a person, no, there are still many fields that I've got to know more about. So what I do right now is I just write the articles about anything that comes to my mind.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Writing. So writing is where you are. Now tell me this: how many hours are you busy in law school? Very honestly, how many hours are you busy with the law school work, with the work from law school? Speak from your person.
If it is like about like the work, the hours I spend on the work from law school, it will be pretty high because from our college we do not get so much of support because we'll have to take and we have to take in a lot of effort to like cover up portions and do things like make notes of our own and do a lot of research work because the support we get from the faculty is very less.
Okay,
So
fine. 18 hours a day? Is it 18 hours a day?
not 18, maybe, but somewhere around 18, maybe, yeah.
18 hours in a day? Are you very sure?
No. I'm not saying like 18 hours, proper 18 hours a day, but definitely a bit more.
Give me a number. Because right now, if you can't give a number, that's the problem. You get me?
Okay.
Your work is scattered all over the place. So you're not able, like, I do a little bit studying in the morning, then I do in the noon, then I'm chilling also in the bit. I get that. Absolutely nothing wrong in that. But what I'm telling you is that that's a problem. If you're spending 18 hours a day studying for law school, then that's a lot of extra energy wasted. 18 hours a day, even when you're learning to be judge, you don't have to be studying 18 hours a day, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
There has to be a number to it. Is it 6 hours? Is it 7 hours? If it's 7, let us assume that you have to. Do you go to college on a route now? Yes, of course, the corona thing, but how many hours of classes do you have? Let's consider those first of all.
Well, starting from 8:30 to say 3, it depends actually. For our college, it definitely depends because we don't know at what time what all comes in.
So what is the allotted time? What is the allotted time is what I'm asking.
4:30.
Yeah, 4:30.
8:30 to 4:30. Great.
Yeah.
So that's the time for you to be in college. After you come back from college, you have to do a little bit of studies. Now, after all of that, you will have 2 to 3 hours left. After you're
Yeah.
chilling, everything, that's the hour you give to freelance. So
But so will
you
will
don't
that
pick
be
up.
enough?
Uh-huh.
Will that be enough, like to?
That's all you should be doing right now. You're in law school, right?
Okay.
Like if that's 2 to 3 hours is all you can give, then give that time. You don't have to give more than that. You don't have to make time and let it take away. The whole idea of freelancing is that it happens. It's a side hustle. It's happening on the side
Okay.
until you are ready to do it full time, which for me happened last year. Where I was like, "Oh, now I don't want to do this, a side gig thing. I want to do this full time." So
Full time. Yeah.
that's when I got into it full time. But until then, I was doing it on side, and whatever time you have, you can give into it. Which is why it's important to know that time. My everyday struggle is with that time. If I can know one day before when I am doing what, it will save me 4 to 5 hours.
Okay. Yeah. No planning in advance.
Yeah, because I know tomorrow at this point I'm going to be doing this, so I'm going to be prepared for that. So don't go overboard with it. Also, uh, don't just leave it out. Find out that timing. Break it down into variables. Break it down into specific. Understand that okay, every day 2 hours I have. Now in 2 hours, maybe you can start picking up about say one article a week. You have to submit
Yeah.
one article this week. One or
Yeah.
you can easily do 2 articles. With 2 hours a day, easily you can do 2 articles. So 2 to 3 days of 1 to 2 days you'll spend. I'll write it tomorrow. I'll write it tomorrow. Research this that will go. Then on the third day, one day before the deadline, you'll start writing. But that wasting time is also important because when you're wasting that time, you're not necessarily wasting time. As a writer, I know that you're thinking in the back of your head, imagining how things you want them to be, and then finally, when the deadline comes, you just start putting out all of those things. So find out that time, take up work according to that, and it's definitely possible. It's just about time management.
Sir, I've heard like from many people. I don't know personally, but I've heard from people like saying that when you have very little time left before you, you have the tendency to do more quality work and more efficient work.
Yeah,
So, how far has that helped you? Like, what's your personal experience
my
on
whole
this?
career was built on that. My whole career was built on. Now I'll tell you. I mean, if my client hears this, I'm going to lose him, but it doesn't matter. Uh, I had to work on a client pitch. Right now, I'm procrastinating because oh my god, I have to sit down, work on this. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And in that, I'm just reading things, I'm absorbing things, but it's a constant worry in my head. Right? It's
Yeah.
something that's bothering me. I prepared the pitch on the drive to the client's office because now there's no option. You have to think, and when you're put into that situation, but that also involves what did you do when you wasted your time, right? As a creative, inspiration can come from any point. So what did you do when you wasted? Were you really wasting time, or were you in the back still thinking and worrying about it? Then that works. There's this great video. I will actually share it with all of you right away. Give me a moment, please.
Yeah.
Into the mind of a master procrastinator. Uh, is a study that a person has done into the mind of a master procrastinator. It's a TED talk which talks about how procrastination or how people who do things at the last moment are much efficient than the ones who do, but there is a method to it. One is being absolutely lazy, and one is just putting things to the last minute and just getting that extra boost, getting that extra push. Once you cross that line, then there's nothing you can do. Then you're hopeless.
Yeah.
So also this now look at it in this another sense is that give yourself lesser time. If something is to be done within 4 hours, give yourself 1 hour to do it and see chances are that you will do it better in that 1 hour. But what do we do? Instead of taking that 1 hour in the beginning, what do? We take that 1 hour in the
Last.
lot of in the last lot of causes. So right now it will not be a problem, but when your stakes rise in life, it will lead to a lot of. And if you're doing it once in a while, is fine. We do all of this every semester during exam. This happens with every student. Every student in our country goes through this problem, or this last minute genius of okay, how do I study? How do I not study? It's great, but when it starts happening on a regular basis, then it leads to a lot of problem like mental health issues in terms of lot of stress, lot of burnout symptoms, at that time you can switch back to doing it earlier. That's all. That's my one suggestion would be, don't push it so much that it
Becomes
puts you in a it puts you in a place of having anxiety about your work. As long as you've got your anxiety in check, go ahead. Go. There's nothing for you to lose. Understand that always. You are living on a dot in a very big universe, and even a smaller dot on that. There's nothing, all of us are inconsequential. This has no value. 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line, all of us will be in the soil. So there's nothing that can go wrong. Like, you wouldn't accidentally end the world. That's a problem. You get it? Anything below that, it's not a problem at all. Take that risk, see how it works for you. And yes, if you are asking that, does that work? It's a secret, but it does. Yes, it does work.
okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So you will see that a lot of things that you were taught in school, that do things on time, I will not tell you, or my views will be opposite to that. Please don't be like after tomorrow that I met this guy who's told me to not worry about things. So from today I'm going to do everything last minute. Please don't do that. Find your own rhythm to do things is what I would say. I think we have one more question being asked.
Amrita, Nevada. Do you prefer grabbing the mic, Amrita?
Amrita, yes, I think that will be better because I can then ask you questions.
Yes. No. She does not prefer. All right.
Okay, no worries. What is your stand if a person is doing his or her internship in court? For a student who is new to the whole concept of court, it is usually a time where the student is totally clueless, and amidst COVID, where the costs are reduced to 30 to 40%. Okay. So going into the courts can be a very overwhelming process, right? Especially the first thing it takes. And I didn't figure out for almost 2 weeks, and I was too scared to ask because I couldn't understand what the judge was saying when I was doing my first internship. And the judge was saying all these things, and everybody's there looking super serious and looking super interested, like they know each word. I didn't understand one thing that man was saying. Half of the time, I couldn't hear what he was saying. And that, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. I'm not able to hear. My concentration is bad. I have to get my ear checked. And then finally, I just one day asked my senior. I was like, I don't understand what this person is saying. I don't understand what the judge is saying. He's like, of course, even we don't. I'm like, you also don't? And that was such a relief for me. He's like, how can I know what he's talking about another case? Because I don't have the facts of the case. How could you know it? And that's when I realized that, there are a lot of problems that are in my head, which are only in my head. Right? So Amrita, what are you going into this opportunity for? It's a whole new concept. Yes, ask questions. When you walk into rooms, yes. No, Amrita. Yes, Amrita, tell me.
I'm going to the court. Actually, it's like on the basis of DSLA. Like we don't have much work in DSLA, so we mainly they send me to court like from 11 till probably 1:30 in the afternoon. So going there as also is like it's like near COVID right now. So the courts the advocates stay near to the judge. They're literally they're just barred by a glass sheet. Nothing else is that. So I cannot hear anything. Even though if I can hear that, they would call the cases, and then the parties would not have been that the advocates would just pass on a file and say something which is not we can't even hear anything.
Yeah.
So this hinders my work to write my internship diary. So I really don't know what to do. My dad is persisting me to write an internship diary, but I don't know what to write. There's nothing going on the code. I'm just
nothing going on. You don't know what's going on.
Judge is not even talking.
So now what
I can't even write in my
diary. You don't know what to do. What's happening in the code? Got it. Absolutely, very classic case. You cannot talk to the judge, but you can talk to the advocates. Go talk to them. If there's a case that you really sort of understood something, didn't understand, or if there's a advocate that because you're going out, you have to understand this. Maybe you don't understand a lot of things that they are saying, but you understand people. You know how to talk to people, right? You cannot go talk to the judge, but you can talk to the advocate. Go make a few friends there. Go talk to them. I'm sure there are so many advocates you see on an everyday basis. Look at them, smile at them, but have never spoken a word with them. Hello, hello. So many people we do. Go talk to them. What was your case about today? Just go. Trust me when you go tell people that, hey, I am an intern and I need to write my diary. Oh, absolutely no worries at all. Not a problem at all. I need to write my diary and I need to, I'm trying to find out more and I'm trying to learn more. The moment you tell someone that you want to learn something, you'd be surprised at how much people are ready to teach. Because that advocate is also for so many months has not actually had a proper interaction either in the court or what with people. And when you go and tell them, hey, I need to write my internship diary. For that, I need to know what happened in your case. Could you quickly brief me? That's about it. Your problem is all there. But we'll be very reluctant, right? I'm sure that reluctance, how do I go someone ask them about their case?
Yes, sir.
Get rid of it. Lawyers love to talk. That's why they became lawyers in the first place. They love to hear the sound of their own voice. I'm just making it slightly funny, but you have to understand that the moment you go tell a person that, hey, I have this issue or I need some help with it, you'd be surprised how much people would love to help you. If you see that person in a canteen, go take, can I have 5 minutes? All take enough time. By the time that person's done with that person's chaya, he's having tea in front of you. By the time the person's done with the coffee, take 5 minutes to write in your case study what happened in that case. Go ask them, sir, and make sure. And the best thing to do in courts that you want to learn is become friends with juniors. If there's a really big advocate, become friends with his juniors. Become friends with his intern. Right? Now, a lot of people, when my friends used to tell me initially that I don't get taught much in the office, I'm only taking photocopies. I only see opportunity in that because if somebody is asking you to take a photocopy of a document means the document is important. You literally have the access to document at that point. You can sit and read that document there. So talk to people. When you're not able to figure out what's happening there, talk to people, talk to juniors, talk to other interns. You will get some information there. When you cannot find information readily available, dig for it. That's how I would have approached it in this scenario.
Okay, thank you.
I still find a question on your face. So yes, tell me what's on your mind. Tell me.
Sir?
Yeah, I mean, I still see that there is still some question lingering in your mind, which is why I'm asking, like, what is it? What's a follow-up question that you have?
No, sir. Like it's so like I am totally clueless. There's like no one. The advocates are like sending their juniors in, and I have like I don't know who the advocate is or who the junior is first of all, and the language barrier is like present for me right now. Like I'm doing my internship in Mangalore, so the language barrier is like it's really present there. And also like whole system like it's different from the Kerala courts. So I literally don't have idea where to start, where to stop, which advocate to talk to.
Just
Anything
start talking. Yeah, great. This is a great problem to be in, Amrita. Problem that you are in is an opportunity to learn. Start talking. I would still just say you start exploring the power of communication. If not, at the end of the day, once the court is ending up, go talk to the court clerk.
Okay. Thanks,
Right?
sir.
Yeah, there is someone who can give you. There are 100 to 200 people coming in that courtroom and going. There is someone who will give you some information. Court clerk, office clerk, your office clerk. If you have a clerk in your office, ask those people. Go roam around with the clerk. Clerks know a lot, right? The clerks know a lot. Talk with them. Talk with other juniors. Whether you understand the language, nothing. Just connecting with people. You know where I would get a lot of information. I would know one day before whether which matter was going to be listed in which place. You know why? Because I was the friends with the clerk of a very big advocate, and we were just friends. Like I would see him and I would be like, "Hey, can you tell me about this? Can you do this? Or why did they do that in that case?" I would literally go with the most stupidest doubt. I've sat down and asked a senior advocate what passing over means. I literally asked a very, very famous senior. At that point, I didn't know he was a senior advocate. And he laughed. People around him laughed. right? Everybody was like, who's this idiot who's asking? I cannot name that person because if I named him, you would probably know him. So very big senior advocate in Bombay High Court. I shouldn't have. The thing is, he laughed, the people around him laughed. And he gave an answer to my question. He told me what passing over means. My doubt was solved. Even if I was made fun of, but a very senior advocate solved that doubt. And every time after that, he saw me in the court, he would either wave at me or say hello. He's like, I could see it in his eyes. Aren't you the idiot who asked me what passing over means? He still recognized me. He even helped me out because now that was a one-on-one conversation I had. I was once presenting a case in front of a judge, and he was sitting there, and I was fumbling, and he told me what to tell the court. I didn't know if it was because I talked to him, but I'm someone who takes chances. So take your chances, Amrita. Don't. We have been given a lot of things about this is how you have to approach it. That is no. Just start talking with people. Let me know in a week through Shivdat whether this worked out. Talk to as many people as possible. Tomorrow, go talk to first. Start off with the clerks and interns of other offices. Don't. We have always an affinity to just talk to people we know. Go talk to people you don't know. Maybe the clerk. Maybe the person who the stenographer, ask them, what is there any interesting case listed tomorrow? Can you let me know? An intern. Say that.
Sure, sir.
We will find it and tell you. Go there next day. Hey, is there any interesting case? Either they'll get irritated and tell you, or they will really appreciate what you're trying to do there and they will tell you. Nobody's going to withhold any information. Start talking. Break out of that shell. Break out of that whole idea that, hey, maybe knowledge is a problem. No, knowledge is not a problem. It's not a problem. Just go ahead, start talking with people. You will be surprised at how much information you get. And especially if an advocate is young. If now you cannot identify if it's a senior advocate and you don't want to do a blunder like I did. I got away with it. I don't know if you will. So go out there. If it's an advocate who's your age group, who's young, go ask them. Hey, I'm doing an internship. I would like to know something about your case. Can you tell me? That's all. So yeah, I think that's how I would have approached it. Not necessarily the right way to do it or the perfect way to do it, but this is how I would have approached it. So break that barrier in your head that this is not possible. You're literally sitting in a gold mine and looking for 1 rupee coins. You're sitting on a gold mine and looking for 1 rupee coins. Don't do that. Find the opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity there. That discomfort that you're facing right now is one of the strongest things you will ever come across. It will force you to learn. Do that. Use that opportunity.
So the main discomfort is like getting out of like my seat because literally the advocates are the only one allowed in. So it is like literally really embarrassing. If I get up, everyone like stares at me. So like first of all, being in a uniform or a color dress, it like grabs everyone's attention. So I
Great.
I have to.
Everybody knows now you are a new person. You can ask as many stupid questions as you like. Correct. Look at it as that opportunity. You have nothing to lose, Amrita. Nobody in that court is even going to probably remember its existence. Make as many mistakes you want to make. Nobody is going to remember those mistakes. And at this point, you can make so many mistakes as a junior, as someone who's still trying to learn. The opportunity to make mistakes is so high that there is literally nothing at stake here. Even if you say something stupid in a court, even nothing is going to happen there at all. So don't look at it in those terms. Don't look at it as, oh, I am an odd one out here. In fact, that's great that you are the odd one out.
Thank you, sir.
All right. If anyone has questions, we'll be happy to answer it.
So yeah, I mean, we'll continue. So that like with of course, sir. It should be the other way around. But please go ahead, sir.
You can grab the mic. Yes.
Hello.
How are you? Good evening. Am I audible?
Absolutely, sir. How are you?
I'm good. It's wonderful to see how the conversations are going here. They're so interesting, students can feel free to ask any question, and we're getting very beautiful answers. I think after a long time, I'm seeing these kind of a conversations. So it's
Thank you so much. And it's always that's the angle that I come with. That I will always you can be sure that I'll come up with an angle that is just so simple and people don't talk about, because I think
yes,
it's a problem that we faced as juniors, right? That you
correct,
wouldn't know,
correct.
you'd be so scared to ask. We as lawyers may have made the field so uptight and oh my god, so court and everything. Nothing. It's nothing. Like literally, that's how what I remember. I'm going to die after 50 years. None of this is going to matter. I am going to become, what do you say, valam for some tree. So how does it matter? Like, and these things a lot of people don't talk about. So I thought, like, since I've done a lot of stupidities in life, I can at least share with people so that they can avoid those.
No, I think this is the result of the experiences which you had in your college life as well as in the court, where you practiced. I have one question. I have one question. That is, while I was in my law school, I could not talk to anyone as freely as this. So that's why lately I want to ask this question. That is, while I was in my law school, I never thought that I could become a good advocate. I do not know whether I am still doing good or not.
I don't believe that, but please go ahead. Yes.
Uh, so I never thought that I'll become an advocate and I'll practice, because there was nobody as a lawyer in my family
Mhm.
to support me. So I always thought, while I used to see my friends who were children of lawyers, I thought they were far ahead than me. I did not even understand the basic concepts of law. So I thought, okay, this is not my area. And I tried exploring different areas. Maybe, for example, I went into management areas. But lately, I ended up practicing. Now I'm practicing in the courts. So what should be the perspective of students while in law school? They should explore the opportunities as many as possible. If we could just get one perspective of yours on that way, in that.
Like, stop being scared of being a fool in front of people. Our constant fear with everyone, especially in our field, is, making mistakes is looked down upon so much. Oh my god, you made such a big mistake in the brief. But that's why my senior is there, so that he can correct it. It's not, nothing is going to be nothing is going to come upon me. I am not going to be liable for anything at all in life. So one, stop being scared of making mistakes. Stop fearing that you will make a fool out of yourself, because chances are you already are a fool. Right? I look at myself whenever we always are scared of being the least smartest person in the room. I have literally built a career out of being the least smartest person in the room. I have made sure that I walk into rooms where there are people who are a lot more smarter than me, and I would very shamelessly ask questions. I wouldn't be worried about, for me, the experience counted. And when I say experience, there are two ways in which I categorize experience. So generally, when people say experience, they feel that something good has to come out of it, right? But let's look at experience in terms of food, because food is something all of us understand. Now I'm going to a restaurant. I can either stick with what I have been ordering for like 5-10 years. I know that if I order porota and curry, it's a safe option for me. And am I in a position now? This is where experience and question of experience comes in. Am I super hungry right now? Do I need to feed myself, and do I want to take that risk? Because if something good doesn't come, then I don't want to eat it. On top of that, I'm hungry. It'll just be overall bad experience. So at that time, I go for things that I've always been ordering. But if I'm not that hungry, and if I'm in a mood to experiment that day, I experiment and I tried something which turned out to be horrible. Now people are like, oh, that's such a bad experience. No, that's a great experience. I know what not to order now.
Correct.
That also counts as experience. We have always categorized experience as something from which you learn something good, something that adds value to your life. If something adds value to your life in terms of, okay, you shouldn't have done this, then that's also experience. One has to be always that approach of wanting to learn, and always, it's like this. It's understanding that even great people or people that you look today who are so invincible, Now, majority of it comes from the perception that we create of these very, very famous lawyers. We're like, oh my God, they know so many things that I don't. No, they don't. Very honestly, the smart people that you see having the mics, the successful people who have done such great things, they don't know. They also probably know just a little bit more than you do. All they know is what to speak, when not to speak. They understand people and situation more than you do. Otherwise, there is no information in the legal world that you do not have access to. You can literally pick up a book and learn about any law that a very famous lawyer talked about. The only difference is that lawyer knows how to present it. What is to be said when, what is to be withheld. Yes, that is going to only come with time. But not knowing that thing shouldn't deter you from really approaching it or taking those opportunities. My viewpoint to that was that I ended up not practicing law. Right? I mean, you have known that pretty much. A few people here know that I started off as a practicing lawyer, left that. For me, the experience of that was that I spent 6 years. I am still not looking at it as I dropped out of law. I'm still looking at it. I spent 6 years to understand that law wasn't the perfect, or practicing law wasn't the perfect space for me. And that's absolutely fine. Once we stop categorizing victory, failure, and all in boxes, I think that makes it very easy. And to give an answer to your question very specifically in a simple term, stop being scared of making mistake. Go explore as much as you can, because honestly, nothing is dependent on you. You are in college, you are 18, 19, 20-year-old. What could go wrong in your life? The max to max that could go wrong is that somebody will tell you to leave that office. It's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong. They can ask you to leave an office. They can't stop you from coming back to courts. We are still living in a free country. So how does it matter? I mean, if you learn something from that mistake, so yeah, I mean, that's the reason I'm repeating it one after the again is because I wanted to drill into minds of people. Doesn't matter which family you came from. Doesn't matter what context you came from. As long as you're learning something on an everyday basis. And even if that's as simple as I shouldn't be ordering that dish in that restaurant, it's a learning.
That's true, sir. Very true. Very true. Maybe if there's someone to tell me.
Absolutely. For you and me, for a lot of us, it was figuring out on an everyday basis, right?
Yeah.
It was much later that I realized that the smart people aren't that smart after all. Once you realize that, once you understand, see, I'll put it in a very simple but in a very crude way. Everybody looks ugly naked. All we are doing is every day everybody's somebody's putting the mask of a confidence, somebody's putting mask of swagger, somebody's putting the mask of control, somebody's won a nice code that takes away attention from the fact that they are not good with their work. But everybody's using some tool to hide their insecurity. And once you would, like I said once again in the beginning, sir, that Albert Einstein wasn't confident about his work till the end of it. Albert Einstein wasn't confident about what he did. So I think students should never let their lack of confidence stop them from doing it, because at the end of the day, all of us are making mistakes, and it's absolutely fine.
That's very true, sir. Correct, sir. Because while I was in law school, I was always scared of joining a law office, legal office, where I could do evening internships. I thought people will laugh at me because I do not know anything.
Yeah, that's a constant worry, right? So it's like this. This is in the mountaineering world and in the trekking world. People who trek, they always say "kadam ke aage kadam rakhte jao," which is basically you don't look. If you look at, like I was saying, if you're trying to climb Mount Everest, and if you keep looking at Mount Everest is so tall. If you look at that top, just looking at it is going to scare you. You can't imagine yourself being on top of that. What you can do at that point is take one step at a time. But right now, okay, maybe at that point now, if somebody had told us, you know what, nobody knows anything, just go there in the office, you'll be able to learn. I mean, if somebody had told us just that hey, everybody doesn't know everything, you have to. The whole point is you have to start at some point. Somewhere you have to start. No, today first time in the office, they'll hand you a brief, and they say read this brief, and you'll be like, how do I read this? The first question I asked in an office, which shocked someone, which they were like, hey, that's a genuine question. I am wondering why they gave me a brief, which was about like how generally briefs are, will have 100, 200 pages. And my first question was, how do I read this? I mean, generally, what do? We just silently take that file, call our friend, and be like, Eda, I have this file. I don't know what to do with it. Great, do that. Call a friend, call a senior who you can ask. Always have one person in your life who you can ask stupid doubts to. Like, hey, I don't know how to do this, something that is so simple. Can you please tell me how to do it? So then when I went and asked my senior, how do I read this file? He looked at me for a second, then he's like, just start reading it and figure it out. I was like, no, because then that will take me 4 days to finish reading this, like how you're asking me to read this. You want me to read this in an hour. How do I read it? You are the editor, tell me. That's when one of my seniors told me, start reading a file from the back. That was the first tip that I received in the law field was, one, keep your papers closed, never keep your papers open. Your senior's notes should never be open. First lesson. Second lesson was, start reading a file from the back. Read the prayers first. Once you know the prayers, then you know what information you're looking for. After that, reading a brief was very easy. It wasn't that. But initially, it was like, oh my God, so many pages. Oh my God, so much information. All you need from that 200-page brief is two pages. You know that as an advocate. That vital information, if you took out from that 200-page brief, would be just 2 pages. It's your skill as a lawyer to know which 2 pages to find. Which ask as many stupid questions as you want. That's how I approach it. But I think you also should give an input, because you and Akhil also should like give an input as to how how did you overcome that reluctance in your life, because that's a constant fear every student of mine comes with. Every person I'm mentoring, and I don't know. There are so many people who know so many things. So many people who come from such fancy corporate, corporate firms, and I don't know how to match up to them. How did you deal with it, sir?
So there was this just a reference that you should always have that one friend who you can call and ask any stupid doubt, and he's that person. It's Uncle George who is right away fast. So yeah, he was always good at the litigation side. Even in the college days, he used to be really good. So I think whenever I used to get these kind of a doubt, it was him who I used to rely upon. And yes, Akhil can share the experience which drove us towards litigation.
I will try to like sum it up in 2-3 minutes because almost 7 o'clock. So I started an office when I was in the 4th year. I started up to an office who was practicing in the High Court and also Supreme Court as an evening intern. So firstly, they were reluctant to take me in because it is an evening intern from 5 to 9. So why do they need an intern from 5 to 9? And people ask me, why you are going there for 5 to 9? Because you are not going to court. Then what are you going to do there? And as Kushal sir told me, in the first few months, I didn't know what I was doing there. Maybe I was playing games in my mobile phone, maybe going through some files which I never understood because it was a service matter office. I didn't know anything about the service matter. And all that was repetition. So I used to read each and every file, and they used to give me only to check whether there is any grammatical mistakes in those files, not to point out any legal points, not to find out any legal points. You just read. If there is any spelling mistake, sentence construction mistake, let us know. Do not even correct it. Let us know. That was my part. So I was something less than a glorified clerk. Less than a glorified clerk. But over the time, when I read, unconsciously, I came to know how a writ petition is. What are the essential contents of a writ petition is. It was not my effort, but it was a habit of reading it again and again. Then now I know what a writ petition looks like. How should it be? And when I was in the final year, this issue came up before us because Singh was already running a institution. So a question came up in the Kerala Law Enforcement examination. There was a new clause introduced which wriggled out these people who are not from Kerala from appearing in the Kerala Law Enforcement examination. This matter came to our notice, and we approached some NGOs asking them, see, you can pursue this case because there is some matter which need to be addressed. So you should have some networking so you can approach the court. So there was no one to bring it before the court. So the only choice we had that we have to go there. And I was a bit apprehensive of going to the court straight away. And it was Singh who said that, see, nothing is going to happen. What will happen it will be dismissed. Nothing more is going to happen. And today we have a luxury of saying that we are students, we are law students, we are final year students. We only know this much. And the judge who has an experience of 30 or 40 years is not expecting me to say the whole basic structure of Keshavananda Bharati.
Absolutely.
Things that I have put in some effort, whether I have put in some effort to know the law. Actually, he's not even expecting me to know the law. He only wants to be satisfied that I've put in some effort.
Absolutely.
Laws.
And I think we should tell students that the moment someone knows that you don't know something, but you have turned up nonetheless, they will, the harshest of the judges will put their constitution, all of that on aside and be like, you forget about the law point, you tell me what is written in that brief, rest I'll take care.
Yes, exactly.
And
So-
that, yeah, absolutely. That just going there would have, changed. Yes, please continue.
Yeah, so I was saying that. So I used to tell these juniors of mine, I used even if it's a competition, even if it's a moot court or any debate, elocution or anything, you go and participate, and the result should not concern you. See, even if you lose a competition, it's a lesson for you in the next competition, wherein you have learned something. You have to look at those 99 people who have never even tried to come and appear for this competition. They never knew anything about this. Now you know this is what happens in the competition, and at least for the competition, you have learned something, and that learning is an asset. And when it comes to practice, Kushal sir, I would say that see, all the cases we cannot win all the cases, but all the cases we are learning something new. Something is coming like this. This should not be done like this. This has to be done like this. So each day, I think even senior lawyers are also learning it. So
Absolutely.
if people are saying that the senior lawyers will not fail, there's in the book by Falius Nariman, Before Memory Shades, he has very eloquently quoted that I have lost more cases than I have won. But most people say that, see, I'm afraid I will lose it. But you only lose the case, but you will not lose the experience and knowledge. As Kushal sir rightly told, experience is not only about winning, it is also about losing.
Yeah.
And I personally suggest that somewhere, sometimes you have to lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, we would have an ego that we know everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And more than that, like I said, even in freelancing, it's just about knowing, detaching yourself from the outcome. Like what is going to happen, Maxi? I mean, you're in college, you're still students. What are you going to lose? Nobody is going to hold a gun on your head and tell you that, hey, you have lost and my life is nothing. It's as simple as that. And once you have that approach, once you detach yourself from outcomes in life, work becomes enjoyable, pressure becomes less, because then you're like, hey, what there is in this something or the other for me to learn. So yeah, so like now many of I'm so glad that both of you actually put this question out, because now they know that, hey, somebody who's practicing is telling us that we didn't know anything back then, and that's true, guys. Nobody knows any when they start off. Nobody knows anything, and trust me when I say that. Even great senior lawyers today, the amount of information you have today, they were sitting and chilling in colleges at that time, having zero clue about what they were doing in life. And this I'm talking about the most celebrated lawyers that you can talk about in our country. There was a point when they were also as or even more clueless than you are. And if they can get there, for you, it's just a matter of time.
Kushal sir, I'd like to add one more thing. I think a message has to be sent to the students that being clueless is very normal. Like,
Absolutely. Which is why this is the only topic I'm saying right now.
you have to be clueless. Like you shouldn't know what to do, how to do.
Because if you need,
Also be an experimental mentality inside you for that trial and error method. Go,
Yes.
oh, it's not working. Go to the other door, next door. Trial and error. It's not like the first door is the last door for me.
yes, absolutely. You just have to have the habit of finding the answer. Sometimes when I wouldn't find the answer, just go ask a clerk. You'd be surprised the number of answers you can get from a clerk about some very, very difficult legal questions. As long as you have this to find the answer, you will always find the answer, or either on the internet. There's a lot of free people on the internet who have given a lot of free information, either there or through some person who knows some person. You just have to have that quest of finding that answer. I think we are in fact overshot our time, Shivdat. So do you have any follow-up questions? Because otherwise this will keep going.
I think everything is almost answered even after when Gajendra sir and Akhil sir joined. And yes, it was a wonderful session. Now over to our audience. Does anyone have any specific questions?
One final round of questions if anybody has, and then we will wrap up.
Let me repeat, this is not a webinar, okay? Because
if anybody has any questions, please do ask them, and then we can wrap up today's session.
yes.
I don't think anybody does. Yes, Shivdat, do you have any final follow-up questions that you want to maybe sum it up?
It was a very exciting and informative session. Thank you very much. Thanks to all our participants. And yes, as mentioned earlier, Lex Erudite is inviting articles and blogs, just to formal way of ending it. And we'll be more than happy to post or publish your contents. And we are looking forward. Is it a journey to be a one-stop solution for legal academics and building a network of young lawyers, law students? Fortunately, we'll have sessions like this where we get enlightened as law students with their experiences. Now, sir, I would like to welcome my dear friend Arun Vaidyanath to give a vote of thanks. Yes, sir.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I am Arun Vaidyanath, a member of Team Lex Erudites. I take this as an opportunity to thank Kushal sir for such an enlightening and an insightful session. I'm pretty sure that the information given by Kushal sir will definitely help us in our academics and in future. I would once again thank Kushal sir for spending your valuable time with us. And also, I would like to thank my beloved friend Shivadat for being a wonderful host. Also, thank you to all the participants who have attended the session and making it a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you all. See you. Looking forward to your support.
It's a great session. I mean, always I've done this before with you guys as well. Always appreciate what you guys.
Fortunately.
No, absolutely great job on what you're doing here, guys. The community that you're building, and this is what was lacking when we were in college, and it would have been great, like to have a community of students like this who are discussing problems with each other. And before we leave, just one thing: your success will never be defined by the work you do; it will be defined by who you are. So always invest in yourself. Being a freelancer, you are your sole thing that you can depend on. So failures, none of that matters. What matters is the perspective that you bring in, and that will always work out for. It will always be something that we learn and add time. So go ahead, guys. I hope to hear more success stories and hear the various things that you adapted from the seminar. And then Arun, please do relay back any information that you get.
Yeah, sure,
what
sir.
you talk today has worked for, and great job on Lex Erudites, guys. The whole team. A lot of congratulations. Great fan of the work that you're doing. And just keep doing it and go with the same energy. It's just great to see something that, for the brainchild of two young kids become something so big. It's really, really refreshing to see something like that.
Thanks a lot, sir, for such a kind words.
All right, then we'll end the stream. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. See you all.